You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show and the sixth most popular show originating out of Orange County. So that's pretty cool. I am your host, Rick Franzi. And boy, do we have a good show for you today. Why do you ask? Fair question. Because you might see if you're watching the live stream that Karl Kreutziger is our guest. And he is the president of CW Driver. Karl, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with your origin story. We've got a lot of things to cover in the time, but I want to start with kind of you and your background and the original, take us back in time, motivation, inspiration that you had for joining CW Driver companies.
Yeah, I think, I started really, I lived overseas for 3 years in Spain. My dad was building a nuclear power plant for the government. And we had the opportunity to travel through Europe. And what really, I really love the architecture of Europe and the structures there. And as I came back to the States and I came to Orange County in 1978 and kind of planted my roots there, I went to high school locally. I played a lot of sports locally. And I really started in this business when I was 16. I was working with my father-in-law, which was at the time, my girlfriend, high school sweetheart's father, which I'm still married to. And he was a general contractor. And summers, I literally dug ditches. I stacked wood. I did hard labor as a 16 and 17-year-old. And when I had the opportunity to go to college through a scholarship, I chose Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and their architecture and engineering school. And it was really there that the standards, the engineering, and the practices of architecture really took me. And that's really the career I got into. I transferred out of Cal Poly SLO to Long Beach and worked at the time. So I was still going to school, having children. I've got 3 children, 2 of them work in the business with me. Mm-hmm. And I jumped right into my career. And over the last 38 years in Orange County, I've done just this. I've held about every position in the company, from estimating through scheduling and project engineering and project management. But really, what really interests me was management and leadership. And what I found is that these large projects I was building interest me, but the teamwork associated with that team building it gave me a lot of great leadership skills that I also learned from team sports. And so I'm always looking at people we recruit at that. Have they been into team sports, and do they understand working like that? And so my career over the last 38 years really have involved about 5 different companies. And I've built, I want to say tens of hundreds of projects, either estimating or built them. Everything from hospitals that my youngest daughter was actually born in to
that's cool.
To clean rooms, to churches that we attended, to education projects locally, Chapman Science Building. A number of large projects. But as I worked my way through the industry, I had opportunities and forks in the road that allowed me to move into more management and eventually ownership of the company. And about 14 years ago, I had the opportunity to start a new business within the company of CW Driver. Now, CW Driver at the time was 95 years old. We are the oldest licensed general contractor in Southern California. Our license number is 102. We hold that. And, you know, we've got a great legacy. And so at
Uh-huh.
the time, the CEO, Dana Roberts, had approached me and said, we'd like to start a special projects company that comes in behind all these large projects we do and really specializes getting in and out quickly of smaller projects like that. So he said, I want you to create it in your vision. We're going to step back and let you create that. And that's what really interests me is that I could start a company with my vision, which included at the time surrounding myself with people I worked with over the last 20 years, integrating a nonprofit element to serve our community, which has been a huge success for us, and then go seek those relationships that I had made over 20 years. And so that was really the origin of Driver Special Projects Group, which is now 14 years old. We have been very successful in the type of people we hire and the projects we do. And you go through Southern California and just see those types of projects like Newport Beach Country Club, the Pendry Hotel in Newport, and we have a number of projects. But it was within that time frame that the mothership, the mother company, was suffering from some bad projects, from the culture, and Dana tapped me and said, "Hey, I need you at this upper level to help me guide this ship." And so 3 years into starting Driver SPG, I found myself as president of CW Driver Companies. And over the last 10 years, really, that's what my position has been. And it's been so much of the leadership, kind of the vision, certainly the culture of the company, but just being able to really mentor great employees and give them a great place to work with great benefits in that.
So that's a great story. And when you say that, you say CW Driver Companies, and you highlighted the company that you started within the Special Projects Company. What other? So tell me about the company and the sounds like the diversified nature of CW Driver.
Yeah, good question. So CW Driver Companies, actually, we have, as you said, Special Projects Group. We also acquired a company called Good and Roberts in Carlsbad. They were kind of a special projects group in that area, but really focused on Department of Defense and smaller projects. So we acquired them about, gosh, I want to say 11, 12 years ago. And then the rest of it, we have 5 offices in just Southern California. So Pasadena, Anaheim, where I'm speaking to you today, Rancho Cucamonga, Oceanside, and San Diego down there. Those 5 offices comprise of a company doing about $800 million worth of work annually, just in the Southern California. We did at one time have an office in San Jose, but when I came back in as president, we saw that and pulled it back and said, let's just focus on the LA region in Southern California. There's so much work in there. Majority of the work we do is in education. So we do almost 50% of our volume in projects that include K through 8 projects, unified school districts, higher education, private higher education, and all through Southern California. That really drives about $500 million of our revenue annually. Wow. Yeah. The other projects that we do within that, like I said, are churches, country clubs out in the desert. We've done a number of those, and we're currently working on Santa Ana Country Club, the Archdiocese of Orange. We finished the Crystal Cathedral, beautiful building in the basement down there. And, you know, that really encompasses our projects. We're 340 people in our organization. So we're not the biggest in both revenue and people, but I'll tell you, we've got such a great niche of what we do in education that about 80% of our work is from repeat business and clients.
I believe having a niche is key, especially in the early days, but throughout the life cycle of the company, staying true to your niche and building kind of dominance there. But I've got to rewind it because I think I heard you right, but I wanted to clarify. You started in Slow,
Yep,
you finished in Long Beach.
that's right.
I've been to both campuses. Both are great schools, slightly different.
Yeah.
So it must have been love or something that got you out of Slow to come back to Long Beach, Karl.
Yeah, it does. And 38 years later, and three children, and almost four grandchildren later. Yeah, so Lori graduated from the dental hygiene school. She was ready to work, and I was ready to come back. We had a long distance relationship throughout my college career, and I was ready to get going on that. And so it did. It was love. It was love, that, and love of the business also. I truly love what I do in construction.
That's the key to any longevity and success. I think you can't fake that. I mean, you really, because it takes so, especially as you um, elevate in your position, more and more is expected of you and required of you. And if you really can't put yourself fully into the position, I think it can lead to burnout or frustration or just not a good job fit. But clearly, Karl, you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I tell when we start to elevate people into management in those positions, your phone's never off. It really is not, and you are always on. You always need to be on, um, and but you have to be very. You got to take time for yourself and for your family, and that we really push that message throughout the company, and the way we support our families, the way we support our employees that need help, whether it's medical issues or those things. We have to be there for them, and we try to make that really our biggest differentiator. We say our biggest asset is our people, and when you look at what we give them for benefits and those type of things, it is really a gold standard. With that, we would rather give that to our employees than increase the bottom line, and we've done that many times with that.
One of the things in our pre-meeting that you mentioned to me that when you became the president of the CW driver companies, one of the things you knew you had to focus on was culture. And I wonder if you could maybe from that time forward, maybe give us some perspective on why culture what was it about needing to focus on culture that felt like the right thing for you?
Well, I think it started along my career in relationship building from a very personal level, not from a boss to employee level. So as I continued to work and do bigger projects, my teams got bigger. I had a project in Long Beach that had about 20 people on it, and it's how you get along and lead those. And I took that formula when I started Driver SPG, right? And as I said, I integrated people I worked with, a cause, which is what we call our reach or our nonprofit, included in that, an environment that is safe and trustworthy with people. And as you develop that, what we noticed is in SPG, when I started it, our employee surveys for our small company were off the chart. Our employee engagement in our small company was off the chart. Our interest of people wanting to help others was great. And so I had, within a 50-person company, results that showed that. And when I looked up to the bigger company, we didn't have the same results for employee satisfaction. Weren't even involved in any nonprofit, very little organizations. So that was lacking. And in some cases, people were afraid, to either lose their job or do something wrong, or, that type of thing. So when I got asked to elevate that, I had to take the same formula of that, but do it in a 8 to 9 times fold, right?
Uh,
It took a lot of work. It was a personal one-on-one relationship that I had to create. I had the photos and cell numbers of every employee that when I was on the road, I would call them and see how they were doing, right? Those calls would get back to the managers and they would say, "What are you doing calling my people?"
Yeah.
Right? What? And I'm like, I'm just saying hello. So it took years, and we talked about it before. It took years to develop those relationships on a one-on-one basis that then created the fabric of the culture that just built upon itself. And you can't just interject a new person in the organization and think you can change it immediately. It really was difficult decisions we made, people that came along beside you and started to trust you. And it was day after day after day. You just had to work hard on it. And we eventually burst through that, the flywheel, it started right on itself. And to this date, when you talk to people about it, they say, I feel there's something different here. My mornings start with a flurry of texts for birthdays and anniversaries. This morning at 4:10, I started that, and I had 8 anniversaries and 2 birthdays that we celebrated. And it's just, in fact, our CEO's 54th anniversary is today. CW Driver Companies. So that in itself, you're constantly building it up. You're constantly delivering. You have to be consistent, and that's where we are today on culture.
That's fantastic, because the word that I heard you say, a lot of good words in there, but the word was trust, because it takes a long time to prove to people you're being genuine when you're doing this, because they may not trust it initially, that you don't have some ulterior motive, that you really are, what you're doing is what you want.
That was a big barrier I had, especially from many of the people that had been here 15 years, 20 years. Who's this guy? It was a big barrier for sure.
Oh, congratulations, and commend you for the extra effort. So, piece of business advice. Something, Karl, you picked up along the way that you could maybe pay it forward to our audience, a piece of foundational knowledge that you'd like to share?
I think the thing I talk a lot about is, looking at your career as a marathon and not the 100-yard dash. Is you need to take time to master your skill or your trade, creating a great foundation. And so I really, with younger people today, I have got to tell them they need to slow down on their expectations of climbing the corporate ladder or getting that next promotion. It's not a video game, right? It's not where you're hitting these things, and it takes hours and hours and experience. And quite frankly, there were many times that I failed, but I learned from it. And so for me, it's slow down. Let's get really good at what you are doing here that will advance you to the next level. So I took 6 years in estimating, which one I loved, but it gave me, I could read plans, I could understand how to build them, and I got to look at a lot of projects. So I systematically went through our training programs, and it just created a great base, a foundation for me to go to the next level. In comparison, I would be working next to a fellow project engineer who got a call from a headhunter that said, "Hey, I have a project management job and it's got your name on it." Well, he took it, but didn't have the skill set to retain it. So eventually, I passed him or passed others that just couldn't get there so soon. So, take your time. It's a marathon. I'm about on mile 23 right now. So I think I can see the finish line, but you got to keep pace, right?
One foot in front of the other.
That's right. Every day.
That's the key. Every day. Maybe people aren't familiar with construction. My sense from what I've seen of it, from the people that have been around in your industry, bidding the job, super important. Project management, critical to the performance of any job. those two functions are such a learning space for someone who wants to become a general manager or a president, because I
Yeah.
really think it exposes you to all the risk and then all the opportunity that's baked into the.
Yeah, and what happens when we bid a project and all the assumptions we might take to get that could be completely different than when you're there doing it and how you encounter. So you have to be able to adapt. And this is where, you got to work with really good people in the relationship side of this. When you're working with the same architect and the same engineer, and in step how to solve problems, you can get a tremendous amount of work done. When we struggle, well, haven't worked with architects before or certain things, we don't know how to work together. That's why when we build a team, when we look at a pursuit, we go out and grab architects that we can tell a story. LPA is an architect we've done over 55 projects with.
Been on our show.
Gensler over 60, right? So when we go in there, we know how to work together. And if we go in with a first time architect on a project that we have no story, the likelihood of us getting that project really reduces quite well. But you're right. The difference between that and project management give you the skill set to eventually manage people and process.
Yeah, construction is a lot of problem solving. I think of the movie Mars, Matt Damon. At the end, he's talking about how an astronaut, all they do is solve a problem, then they solve another problem. I thought, man, that's construction, because every day something's not what it's supposed to be. Right?
That's right. And it's all about communication. A huge amount of it is just communication in the documents, communication with the end user. And, if you can't communicate clearly and execute on that, that's where, I thought you said this. No, it's something different. So
Right.
you're right. You're right.
A lot of stress. Yeah. People don't see it sometimes, but yes, whatever can go wrong, unfortunately, probably is going to show up at some point in a project if it's big enough. All right, let's take a different look. Let's look at technology in the form of artificial intelligence. How is that innovation showing up in CW driver companies, and how do you see it maybe in your industry broader?
Yeah, AI, I think it has a lot of different facets to it that we are embracing. One of the things, and I'd say there's a couple points in our ability to do proposal writing, right? We do hundreds. I think we're up to our 300 proposal right now. And the way that we can generate some of these proposals very specific to that, AI can help us and put that together and look at our data and our history and pull that. And our marketing professionals are training it how to do that and to make very specific proposals towards that project. When we have in our estimating, you talked about estimating, we have estimating software that we are teaching to look at these buildings, identify what are doors and windows and wall types and restrooms and stuff. We're training it to do that. So every time it gets quicker for us to quantify all these things. And when we quantify it, then we're just taking our database and taking our drawings and putting it together. And we also use that in our constructability analysis. We have an in-house department that is architects, engineers, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, that look at the drawings that our architects produce and check them and make sure everything ties together. And we like to build a project virtually before it even gets to the dirt. So our constructability department is teaching that software how to find the problems within the drawings and note them so that we can quickly study those. And then, when we look at job site safety, for example, we have technology out there that is being driven through cameras on the site that have analytics and predictability of something that could potentially happen, whether it's a worker walking across a job site with no hard hat on, it will pick that up and note it. if there's cranes or there's things in proximity of others, it will note it. So again, all these things that have to do with AI are coming in and can be used very well in construction and constructability. And we really embrace that at our company.
Wow, what a thorough look at how AI is impacting CW driver companies. I really appreciate that, Karl. You took us, that was a tour de force. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, my friend, you said you got, I don't know, a handful of miles at least left in the marathon. What's the future for CW driver companies look like? Where are you focused? What's the
So for me, it's a continued legacy. I've got 106 years of history, and I continue to keep that in the company, but we've got to continuously earn it every day. And so I want to make sure that we have continued employee satisfaction in the culture that I told you about. We have identified and are expanding our reach in San Diego, down there, and out in the desert. And so we've got 2 more business development people that are coming on to anchor those 2 areas and get more business out there, because we know that we can use it, and we have a great opportunity to do that with that. We also want to increase our deliverables in a design build delivery of schools. We want to take on all the responsibility, hiring the architect and the engineer. So it's a one-stop shop. And we've got a nice design build science center in San Marcos we're working on, and others. And so we see if we control that process, then it's got a better result at the end. And then for me, it's expanding our purpose. And our purpose here is building better communities and lives together. So we are building communities of churches and schools and medical office buildings and that type of stuff. But at the same time, we're building better lives. And we're doing that with how we help the nonprofits, how we help our continued employees, and that. And that's why I say that's what we get up, our purpose, building better communities and lives together. And if you have a purpose, it's better than not. And I don't want someone to have a job here. I want someone to have a purpose and a meaningful experience every time they come to work. And that's up to myself and our executive management to continue to push that so that we have the legacy, maintain the legacy we currently have.
That's so wise, because everything I'm hearing about the millennials and now Gen Z and even somewhat Gen X, the purpose, meaning in their job is really important to them. And so finding that in your company and having that and being able to say that so well, I think really will build on the culture, Karl. So just one man's opinion. That's great words I heard you say. And I have to thank you. I know you're super busy. You gave me time to prepare for the interview, and now you're giving me close to 30 minutes here today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No, I enjoyed it. Thank you for reaching out. And, look us up on LinkedIn, CW Driver Companies. We got 18,000 followers. So follow us there. And you can look me up also. I'm very accessible and would love to chat with anyone that has interest in learning more about our company or our culture or how we do business. So thank you, Rick, very much.
Yeah, you're. I appreciate you being so willing to be open to our audience, and I believe in the power of peer learning, and we can learn a lot from the examples of others. Vicarious learning is a thing, and I think there are a lot of best practices that people can discover in CW driver companies. So, again, thank you for your time today, my friend.
My pleasure. Take care.
And thank you to the audience. You are a part of Orange County's longest-running business talk show. Karl's episode is going to join our catalog of over 1,500 episodes that we've done over the years. If you're an Orange County entrepreneur, business person, nonprofit leader, and you would like to tell your story the way Karl just told his, then reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick, R-A-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. And let me know that you have an interest in being on the show. And between Haley, our producer, who's been with us for 16 years, since 2016, and I will be happy to get you scheduled for a future interview. Until we all have a chance to be together again, I hope each of your business decisions move your company in a positive direction.